were you doing back in 1968? Well, the musical Hair leapt, it danced, it ran, it jumped onto the Broadway with themes of protest, human rights, and equality. And 50 years later, all of those themes are just as fresh today as they were back then. Theater 55 is bringing Hair to the stage, and this time it will be performed by those who lived it. Director Richard Hitchler joins me right now. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to take these glasses off now.
Absolutely.
I can see a little bit better. Tell me about this, because your background is you were with the Stepping Stone Theater,
I was.
Illusion Theater,
Yes.
Cricket Theater, and then you're currently on the Minnesota State Arts Board.
Correct.
So is Theater 55, which is what you started, is that your what's next?
That is my what's next. I think that's something that I saw when I was, whilst I'm currently with the State Arts Board. I actually saw and learned a statistic that only 15% of people over the age of 65 are actually participating as arts makers. They participate in the arts by observing, but they're not the arts makers. And so I was looking for and being prodded to start a new theater, and I didn't want to start another children's theater because there are so many of them right now and they're doing a fine job. And so what I looked at was what's missing, what's that niche, what needs to be filled in the Twin Cities and beyond. And there is not a theater that exists exclusively to do shows for that senior age group. So elders, and I think that too often in our society, elders get put out to pasture or told to just be done, you know. And how many people want
really
to just
starts
go,
at age 50,
it does,
doesn't it?
it does.
Right?
By
You know?
age 50, you're kind of over it. You know,
Right.
people are done. Your history, you've done it all. Now it's time, and I was told that too, you know, time to hand off the baton, time to go on and do something else. Well, what else is there to do? You know, we've been doing this work. We're busy, we're active, we have a lot to contribute still. So my sense was, I want to start a theater that's going to be for this market and use those same ideas and principles I used with youth, but apply that to this age demographic. And this age demographic certainly has come out in full force in support of this. So I'm really thrilled by that.
I bet, very hungry.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what we have. We have a clip of group rehearsal that's back in December. So let's take a look.
Give me a head with hair, long beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, steaming, flaxen, waxing. Give me down to their hair, shoulder length or longer. Here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy, hair. Flow it, show it, long as God can grow it, my hair.
Okay, I can't help but just tap along with that. Hair,
Absolutely.
hair there
Yeah.
everywhere, right? And
Yes.
so tell me about the cast. How did you find your cast members?
I
And
did some heavy
how's it going?
recruiting. Yeah, it's going great. They are a fabulous cast. I have 26 people. I had about 60 people audition. It is fantastic. I was not sure how many people would turn out, and I was trying to figure out how few people I could do the show with if I needed to, and I had no problem. It was great. And so what I did was I put it on places like Minnesota Playlist and some of the usual places, but then I went to senior homes and I asked people, and I started putting it out on Facebook through different theater groups and so on. One of the first things I heard was from a woman who wrote back and said, hey, is this somewhere where for a 73-year-old chorus gal can get up and hit the boards? And I said, absolutely, that's exactly who it's for. And she's in the show, actually.
Wow. But she's not the oldest one.
She's not. There's people older than her and younger. And so, you know, they're roughly between 50 and about 75. And it's just been amazing. There's a couple of people who snuck in that are just under that age, but
Okay.
only two.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean,
I thought it was fine, and they're loving it too. They're loving that experience and learning this too, and getting prepared for what that's like too. So it's really been great. And the majority of people are 60 plus. Some people I'm just amazed to find out. A man told me just the other night that he will be 71 in a month, and I thought, my God, you don't look anything. Some of the people 70 years old look like they're 50. Some of the people who are 50 look like they're 30, you know, so it's great. I mean, it's wonderful how people in this community and are active still and are still participating in things, but want to do this. It's a great experience.
So why hair? Of all the things you could have chosen, right?
It kind of became that trifecta of things that happened. I was riding my bike past the History Center and saw the 1968 exhibit was happening. I had just heard on the radio a story about hair's 50th anniversary, and I was starting a theater, and I thought, what a perfect show to do. And the fact that here we are in the country, not to get too political, but here we are in the country that's divided, and here we are in a time in which we're still fighting for those same basic human rights. And some of the names have changed, some of the things have changed, but it's still what we're doing as people. And we have to continue that fight. And who else would fight it but seniors? People, elders who are out there working their butts off to fight this and fight the injustices and leave the world a better place. So this is why I chose it.
That's
just
why you
seemed
chose
right
it.
on.
Yeah. So, so with this age group, are there any challenges that you've encountered?
There have been. The same woman I told you about, had slipped and fell and broke her wrist. So you don't expect that. She wanted to quit because she had this colorful cast on her wrist. And I said, no, you can't quit. We will figure out how to put that into the show. And she's lucky that she said, I get to get it off just before the show. But she's in it still, so she's doing that. I did have somebody who had a heart attack the day before we took a break over the weekend. And, surprised me because at 3 o'clock in the morning, she was sending me emails saying, I had a heart attack, but I'm going to be in the show anyway. And my doctor said it's the best thing for me. And so she's in it. But other things too. I mean, some surprises. I ran into a glitch early on trying to get insurance, general liability insurance, and we were turned down because of the age group that I was working with. They didn't want to take that risk with us, which surprised me in an odd way. And so I had to move on and find elsewhere. But those sort of things. But no, the great thing about it is, it's interesting. People are people all the way through. The same insecurities that you have as a youth, you have as a senior, an elder person. Can I sing this? Can I really dance like that? Can I really do this? And those things happen all the way along that way. Or do I find my group? And I got to say, people who have been engineers, who've been, in the human resources area and so on, are here acting. Some of them who didn't start until they were in their 60s and retired from their work life and are now participating in this. And it's an incredible experience for them to kind of find a niche that they really like. And this group has coalesced as a community and a tribe, as it says in Hair, in such a way that they have become this great coalesced group of people who I think will be lifelong friends, and just be there for each other.
So it's your village. You've created a village, right?
We've created a village that is really incredible, and they're a wonderful group of people.
Oh, okay. So now I have to ask you, because back in 1968, it went on to Broadway, and it had a nude scene in it, which was a big darn deal back then. Because it was the first of its kind.
Of course.
Now, since then, there's been a bunch.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was.
It was.
So you guys going to do it?
We shall see. The one thing I always tell people is come expecting a surprise. But we did work through that a few different times, and I have. There's two ways to do it. One is with it, and one is without it. And like they did in the actual original Broadway version, those actors were given a choice. They could do it or not. The producer said, your choice. And every night it was a little different. And so I'm giving the actors a choice. And I think, what's amazing is that you can say, well, who wants to see old people nude on stage? Well, why? Why do we have to say, oh, there's something wrong with that, or they're not beautiful, or something like that? It's just a human body. I mean, we all have them. We're all born with them. We all die with them. I think if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Don't be surprised. If you don't want to look, close your eyes. It's half a second.
Very short time.
It's a very short. It's a very, very short.
Into the first act, right before the start of the second one.
Right just before intermission, it happens. It's a blip. I saw the show in New York in the revival version of it. I had to turn over to the person I went with and ask if they actually got naked, and she said, yes. Did you miss it? And I said, I must have blinked. So it happens so fast, you don't really see it, and it's dim. There's lighting, and the whole idea though is that was something that stood out. And there's a lot of moments in this show that have to have that sort of shock value and that idea. And that was why it made that show so important, is because people were very shocked and surprised by what people were doing on stage. That show, one of the great things about it is it ended up having more top 100 hits than any other show since then, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, it is. And you shared with me earlier before we started that when they were burning their draft cards, one of your actors on stage, all of a sudden it kind of hit them.
Yeah, it did.
The emotion of that moment.
Yeah, and that's the moment just before that scene happens, because it's a very emotional moment. And there's a scene where all of the men are coming in and they're burning their draft cards, and one chooses not to. But as they're doing that, one of the actresses in the show just started physically weeping with that emotion, and it was really I had to stop that scene for just a moment and let that sort of resolve itself, and then move on from there and do it again. But everybody in the cast got so I want to say so emotional and so strong and so committed to what was happening right then and there. And the stories that people have who are in the cast, some people actually did burn their draft cards. What happened to people who did that is really an intense thing as well. Some people were beaten and so on and so forth when it was discovered that they did that. But the danger of doing that, the real danger, is what sort of set some people off and kind of triggered some people, who had been through that and experienced that with siblings or themselves or others, and so it is a very emotional piece.
And you're doing something online when you go to Theater 55 on Facebook. You're sharing stories from the cast members about what they were doing in 1968.
Yeah, I've asked them to post both a photo of them in 1968, if they have one, and a photo of them now, and then talk a little bit about why hair and why Theater 55 and why they got involved. And I've found some amazing stories. Like one I was saying is one man who had just finished in 1968, just finished his first tour of duty in Vietnam, was back in San Francisco, met some hippies, and the next thing you know, he had this second photo. His photo was him in front of a VW bus heading off to Woodstock.
That's an amazing
Totally
change.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And, his father was a World War II hero and so on, and he had always been expecting that's exactly what was going to happen to him. Well, when he came back, he found out that his sister had met some hippies. He started hanging out with them. He became a conscientious observer, filed for that, and he got that, and he's off to Woodstock.
Wow.
Next thing you know.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Amazing stories. And some other people who have just incredible stories, what they were doing then and what now. And some people were oblivious to it, to everything that was happening. People growing up in, out in the rural areas who maybe never really got to see what was going on in the news or got to learn that, Another woman who said she was living in D.C. at the time, and all she wanted to do was stand up, with everybody else and scream Black Power, because that's what she knew, and she couldn't do it at the time because of her parents and how they kept sort of control of her, etc. And she wasn't able to do that, but that's what she wanted to do, and it was a tough time. It was a turbulent time in our country, and today again, this is the thing that I think is really amazing: is the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're dealing with the same thing. Back then we were dealing with women's rights. Now we're dealing with women's rights, and we have the Me Too movement. There was interracial marriage, and now it's gay marriage. There's all sorts of things that are happening that continue to happen throughout our country, and again, it's just basic human rights that we want. We as people.
Yeah. So we have this segment, and it's called In Case You Didn't Know. It's a little trivia about the original production.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, first thing I know is it was done originally in the park, in Shakespeare in the Park. Hair was done and had, I think, only like 2 or 3 songs to it. And so when it actually went to Broadway, somebody said, hey, if this is on Broadway, we better have some music.
And they added quite a few songs.
They did, and it's beautiful. Now it's all songs, and I don't know where the dialogue went. So,
so that was, and it was considered the first rock musical, right?
It was, yes.
Diane Keaton was in
Diane
the
Keaton was in the original.
production,
Yeah, yeah.
Which is fascinating. If you go online, you can find pictures of of her. I couldn't grab any for our production only because they're too small, but she's out there. Ben Vereen. Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
Talented singer-dancer. And then the song Let the Sun Shine In was added for the Broadway run. And of course, the nudity was not part of the first two productions.
Nope. And then it became part on Broadway. And I think what happened was it started from an actor on stage who wanted to do that as part of what became, and the song becomes about your freedom and about understanding your freedom. You know, what was the most, how could you be the most free you could be? The most freeing you could be was to just disrobe. And several actors followed suit. And the producer said, if that's the movement and that's the way you want to go, and that the spirit moves you to do so, do so.
But they had seen that also in several protests.
Right, exactly, because that was part of the movement. That was part of what was happening during the time, because people were so uptight about nudity and about that type of thing that was it. But the show, it's not like Old Calcutta or something where the actors are nude the whole show. This is again, it's a blip of a moment, and whether or not it happens, we'll see, to be determined. If it's 17 below zero, I don't know that anybody wants to take anything off.
All right, because it's not that warm on stage.
No, it's not that warm.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, here's your chance to tell people where to go, where do they buy tickets, and where do they go?
So you can go to theater55.org or to Brown Paper Tickets and find tickets there, Theater 55. And that's the best place to buy tickets. They're $25 a piece, really for a great cause, because we will do more. Theater 55 will then do another production in the fall, and then more beyond that.
All right.
So, yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate you
I
coming
appreciate
and sharing
having
this whole thing.
Yeah, thanks.
And break a leg,
Thank
right?
you.
All right.
All right.
Again, I'm going to let our audience know that the Theater 55 production of Hair is going to run January 31st through February 10th. Tickets are $25. You can buy your tickets at theater55.org. It's at the Mixed Blood Theater, and that's on 4th Street. There's a senior matinee on February 6th. That's at 1 p.m. Tickets are $15, and it's for that one performance only.
Yes.